And then we have our draft special segment where we're going to be discussing some of the top rookie matchups. A lot of good stuff. Let's start with these offensive position rankings, though. The first one, we got to go quarterback here. Very interesting right now, in that top 5 space, largely because of the Tua Tagovailoa injury. Walk me through number 1, though.
How's our financial plan coming?
Super. Chris, any advice?
With Western and Southern, preparing for your financial future can be easier than you think. Favorite receiver?
Huh?
To get started, visit westernsouthern.com.
Above average Joe Burrow, who's an absolute rocket up draft boards, and now with the Tagovailoa injury, it's almost like a lock for the first quarterback off the board.
Yeah, I feel like he is at this point. You don't complete over 70% of your passes every single game of the season, which what he's done up to this point, facing 2 of the top 5 pass defenses in college football, 3 probably top 25 pass defenses in college football. You don't do that unless you got something, unless there's something there. It's not just the scheme. The scheme's good. It's a good scheme, but it's not just the scheme. It's not just the wideouts. There's something special going on with Joe Burrow here. I do think he is undoubtedly the number 1 player off the board come April. Whoever is picking at number 1, he will be the selection.
And something I want to ask you, and it's something that I've seen on Twitter and some other people kind of reference, even I think Tom McShay in his latest big board has Chase Young above Joe Burrow. What's your opinion on that? I can see you're upset. What's your opinion on people putting Chase Young, who you've called the best non-quarterback in this class? What's your opinion of that?
So if you're assembling a big board, a draft board, it should be you're taking X guy, you're taking the top guy off the board. That should always be the case. It should be the first guy, the top guy available should be the pick if that's how you're assembling your draft board. And so you're saying you're taking Chase Young over Joe Burrow. Obviously you can't assemble a draft board in a vacuum. You're supposed to, obviously, if you have, if you have Deshaun Watson, you're not going to draft a quarterback.
But you're also not going to be drafting number 1 overall if you have Deshaun Watson.
I do think you have to take positional value into it. If there's a generational long snapper, you're not going to have him as the number 1 player on your draft board. I
think there is one in this class. I haven't looked at fully, but I do think there's one.
There's one every 5 years. But no, you have to basically, you have to assemble it with value in mind, with the positional value. And so quarterbacks are always going to be pushed up higher. If you believe a guy's a franchise guy, he should be the number 1 guy on your board because there's 14 or 15 quarterbacks in the NFL that are more valuable than even Aaron Donald every single year per our WAR number. So it's absurd to me if you're assembling a board, taking value into account, which you have to do on a draft board. You can't just put 5 running backs in the top 10 because you think there's 5 good running backs. That is not how you should assemble a draft board. It should be value, should be taken into account, and so obviously quarterbacks should be at the top of that list. But I do think if you're not taking value into account, Chase Young's the best player in this draft. Versus his position as a prospect, he is the best prospect.
But hear me out on this. Why are you creating a draft board that does not reflect positional value at any point? I think some draft analysts are just catching up to this idea that positional value has to be taken into account. Even the best running back in the class isn't a top 10 pick. It rarely is, unless he's just like this dynamic receiver that comes out or whatever. And I think if you're creating a draft board, whether you're a GM, scout, or draft analyst, leaving positional value out of it and saying, no, he's just the best player, it just doesn't make sense because you're going to leave good quarterbacks on the board. You're going to leave average quarterbacks on the board that have more value or potentially have more value than other players.
And I also think that's why, because I feel like it's been done like that for so long, is why you see quarterbacks slip down and people pass on quarterbacks because they're like, oh, this edge rusher that we think is a better prospect at his position than this quarterback is, even though, if you just hit on an average quarterback, you're getting so much more value. Your team is so much better than if that guy turns into an elite edge rusher.
Look at Gardner Minshew. You hit on a quarterback.
Exactly. Teams should be far more willing to take chances at quarterback than they are at this point.
And then when you look at this quarterback class, I guess it gets us back to these offensive position rankings. At number 2, you have Tua Tagovailoa with an asterisk next to his name for obvious reasons. He has the injury, the hip injury, that with a clean bill of health, he's the number 2 overall quarterback in this class and a top 10 pick.
Yes.
But with the question mark there, the asterisk there, it does make things difficult. I kind of want to move past Tua Tagovailoa and discuss this bottom 3 here. Justin Herbert at number 3, the Oregon quarterback. Jake Fromm of Georgia. Jacob Eason of Washington. All 3 of these quarterbacks, Herbert obviously the best of the 3, have a ton of value. And they do belong high on draft boards, even though they aren't the top players at their position.
Yeah, and they've been going kind of opposite directions. So Herbert's been going up the second half of the year. Down the stretch here, 91.3 passing rate over his last 5 games. He's looked very good. Been very efficient efficient with the football, avoiding those kind of boneheaded games that we've just seen from him in the past. Big 12 championship game. That's everyone circle it on your calendars. Utah, Oregon.
Pac-12.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, Pac-12 championship game. Circle it on your calendars. That is the game you got to watch Herbert. If he shows up and does it against Utah, we could talk about him as a top 5 pick now. We can push him up into that conversation because he's never done that against a real defense. Utah is going to have, we talked about it, the most invites to the Senior Bowl. They have a defense loaded with talent. The best player is not even a senior, Jalen Johnson, probably the cornerback. So there's a lot of talent on that Oregon or Utah defense. If Oregon goes there and Herbert puts up an efficient game, beats Utah, then we could talk about it. But just beating up on some of the dregs of the Pac-12, still good. But he has been trending up, has been better of late, avoiding those bad games. Fromm and Eason, though, we've talked about it. We've poured one out for both of these guys at times over the past 5 or 6 weeks. They've had some rough performances. Go back to that Eason game against Utah. What he did against them, that dropped him hard down our board. He went 4 of 18 for 24 yards under pressure in that game. 4 of 18 for 24 yards, 1 point, whatever, do the math, 1 point something per attempt. That's rough for him. So 41.0 passing rate under pressure for the season for Eason. And while we talk about clean pocket passing, more indicative, more stable year on year, being that bad under pressure, especially in college, seeing ghosts like that only gets worse in the NFL.
And even with that, what you said about Jake Fromm and Jacob Eason, they're both top 50 players on your big board.
You still should be willing to take a shot at them. Yes.
Because of that positional value. You do not pass on a Jake Fromm or Jacob Eason because there's a better tight end on the board or something like that. You need to
you don't pass on Lamar Jackson for Hayden Hurst.
Exactly.
Basically.
Bingo. But I mean, the Ravens very fortunate.
He's Lamar Jackson's a great reason why you should be taking chances on talented players like that, because transforms your franchise. You look like a different team when you have a competent guy there under center. You don't look like a different team when you have, Hayden Hurst. You don't look like a different team when you have, a top 10 tight end in the NFL. That doesn't move the needle.
It goes back to what Steve said. A little bit of it. It's just draft good players, and there's going to be good players. You don't need to force a need at a certain position. Draft good players, and if the best player available is a quarterback, man, the worst thing that could happen is you have 2 good quarterbacks. Say you don't have a need, but then you have a ton of value at backup quarterback. And with the league, you've seen so many injuries happen, all of those things.
And we've seen guys, so Josh Rosen, all-time bad rookie year, still gets a second-round pick the next year. You couldn't get a second-round pick for Cleveland Farrell right now.
No.
You couldn't get a third-round pick probably for Cleveland Farrell right now, the way he's played. You have Deshaun Kaiser, has a terrible rookie year. Second-round pick. You get a starting safety for him the next year.
Yeah.
And Demarius Randall. You flip him for that.
Those are two great examples.
I was going to say, no other position does that ever happen.
What do you think Gardner Minshew goes for right now?
Exactly.
What was he, a 6th-round pick?
Yeah.
I guarantee you get a second-rounder. I guarantee it.
They get so much more trade value back. So when you're in that conversation of, let this guy develop, let Drew Lock develop, let this other, young quarterback, let Dwayne Haskins develop. Yes, you can develop from the bench as well. You can develop in a lot of different ways. And the worst thing is you have 2 good quarterbacks, and as soon as the quarterback shows he's good at all, he immediately gets this trade value. You immediately recoup whatever draft position you used on him in terms of trade value.
That was a really good example with Josh Rosen, because he honestly couldn't have had a worse rookie season under center and still got a second-round pick. That is a great example. I appreciate you bringing that up. Let's go to running back here. A very not as valuable position as quarterback, but it's next on this list. Let's start with the Clemson running back, who actually, surprisingly, looking at some other draft boards right now, there aren't a ton of people who have him as the number 1 overall back. Some people seeing DeAndre Swift better. Some people seeing J.K. Dobbins better. I'm looking at you, Todd McShay, and I was really, really surprised by this. Travis Etienne of Clemson, why do you like him? Why is he the number 1 back?
We love receiving ability as a running back position, and he really hasn't showed that. That's how special I think he is as a pure runner, and just as in terms of a pure get the ball in his hands sort of weapon. On 153 attempts this year, he has 70 broken tackles. That's the highest rate. We have 0.46 broken tackles per attempt, highest mark we've ever seen by a ton. No one's ever even hit 0.4 before in our charting. He has 5.74 yards after contact per attempt on those 153 carries. He is the most dynamic running back, since Saquon Barkley. I think he is a better pure sort of running in terms of his vision than Saquon Barkley was. This dude is, he is everything you want in terms of with the ball in his hands. He is as dynamic a threat as there exists in college football right now. So at that point, I think there's still a ton of value. This is where I ranked him around the 30s in this class. And I think that's where I had about Saquon Barkley coming out because that's, again, not going to be super high on running backs. I don't think they're going to recoup your value. So I think that's he is incredibly, he's just a weapon that you can find ways to get the ball to and be, add to your offense.
You have some convincing to do with Todd McShay at the Senior Bowl, because right now, Todd McShay, he releases top 32 players right now for the 2020 NFL Draft on November 20th. Number 1, DeAndre Swift. 2, J.K. Dobbins. Number 3, Jonathan Taylor. Travis Etienne, not even in the top
J.K.
32.
Dobbins over Travis Etienne is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
There you go.
And Etienne, so he came in, true freshman, Clemson. One of the first runs I saw from him, who the hell is that? Why isn't this guy playing more? And he looked skinny, though, back then. He's up to 215, in the 215 range right now. Doesn't look skinny anymore, and he's gotten better. He's legitimately gotten better every single year. If you haven't watched him yet this year, he's better than he was last year. He's legitimately one of the best college running backs I've ever seen when he gets the ball in his hands.
Let's go to DeAndre Swift here. DeAndre Swift, the number 1 player on Tom McShay's board, number 2 here.
That wasn't just running back rankings. That was actually his board.
Top 32, DeAndre Smith. Is that the number 1 player? No,
okay.
Number 1 running back. I apologize.
I was like, what?
You almost threw up all over the place here. DeAndre Swift of Georgia. He comes at number 2 on your running back, or PFF's running back rankings here. 5'9". 215 pounds. This guy, great receiving back.
Yes.
He offers so much value as a pass catcher, and when you see that and where the NFL is going, he's going to be high on the boards.
So just to put, Etienne's broken tackle number in context, like I said, he had 7 broken tackles on 153 attempts. Swift, elusive back in his own right, has 34 broken tackles on 165 attempts. So more attempts, under half as many broken tackles on the season. So that's how outlier Travis Etienne's numbers have been this year. But again, that's why Swift's still the number 2 player on our board, because he's elusive, powerful, 5'9", 215, basically ideal size. It's ideal build for running back, built low to the earth, and can still catch, has some of the best receiving skills of any back in this class. 66 catches in his career, only 3 drops, and he runs legitimate routes down the football field. He's good.
Number 3, Zach Moss of Utah. I believe he got invited to the Senior Bowl. And then number 4, you have Jonathan Taylor of Wisconsin. But I got to skip to 5, because I think 5's kind of hot.
Yeah, let's do it.
Demetric Felton of UCLA, primarily a receiving back. From a usage standpoint, I'd say it's very similar to Tony Pollard in terms of using in the slot, a little bit at the running back position. What are you seeing in this game? Why should more people know about this guy?
Well, because he has the best receiving skills, I think, of any of those backs in college football right now. He can kick to the slot very easily and get open from the slot position. So that sort of versatility, I think, is incredibly valuable in today's NFL. He is elusive after the catch, 14 broken tackles on 41 catches so far this season, 484 receiving yards. That leads all running backs. But again, he's kind of hybrid, so it's not necessarily a super fair comparison. But I do think just that blend of receiving ability, elusiveness, he's a little undersized, a little on the smaller side, but I think that's something that wins in today's NFL. Is more valuable than your A.J. Dillons of the world.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to wide receiver. I think the best question to kind of preface this, number 1 and 2 on your board for wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy at 1, CeeDee Lamb at 2. Why is Jerry Jeudy better than CeeDee Lamb? Why is he ahead of CeeDee Lamb right now? I think it's a good question. People want to know, because people love CeeDee Lamb, and I got to know from you. Why?
I think it's the physical traits. I think Judy's got more speed. Judy's just going to be that tick more athletically to me. They're very similar, though, in pretty much every other regard. I do love that Lamb produces more from the outside than Jeudy does. At this point, his career has produced more from the outside. But it's close. I mean, they didn't start the season that close in my mind. Now they're pretty much neck and neck. I think they're 4th and 6th on the last big board. So, I mean, it's pretty damn close for 2 wide receivers.
Let's go to number 3, Colorado wide receiver Laviska Shenault, which, to tease a little bit, we will be interviewing in the near future on the podcast, which will be fun. Got a nice connection to Colorado. Laviska Shenault, though, number 3. I think the things we say about him is we'd like to see him in one-on-one situations. We'd like to see him throw. I mean, I looked at his stats recently. He does not get a ton of targets 10-plus yards down the field. I'm not even talking about deep targets. Just at the intermediate and deep levels of the field, rarely targeted in that offense. He's built like a running back. I saw someone on Twitter comping him to Deebo Samuel a bit in that he's kind of got very good after the catch, can force missed tackles. I really do like that ability from him. Give me your take on Laviska.
Yeah, so to me, he's Cordero Patterson. He's on the Cordero Patterson spectrum of wide receivers, to where your floor.
I don't like that spectrum.
Okay.
I really don't. I honestly don't.
I know, but that's his floor. His floor is a guy who will be a great returner, will just, if you scheme ways to get the ball in his hands, he will be dynamic and make plays for you in that regard. So that's
play
his
for
floor.
8 NFL teams.
But like last in the NFL, that's your floor. His ceiling, I think, is more on the Debo stamp. Like, he just has better ball skills. He attacks the ball better than Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson, attacking the football down the field was his biggest weakness. He just could not, track. The way he attacked it was not good enough to succeed in the NFL. I don't see that from Laviska. Only 2 drops this year on 47 catchable. He has good ball skills. He went like 8 of 9 in contested situations last year. He's very good and very physical at the catch point.
He's a cinder block too.
That's the thing.
6'2", 220 pounds. The dude is an absolute meatball, and a good one, and an athletic meatball. I guess that's hard to kind of visualize, but that's where I'm at with him. I think he does a really good job of wearing contact for a wide receiver. I mean, you see a lot of receivers not able to sustain big hits and force missed tackles at the catch point. He's forcing missed tackles at the catch point. Yes. I think that's really impressive. For number 4, you have Henry Ruggs, the Alabama speedster, and at 5, you have T. Higgins of Clemson. But I want to know, someone not in your top 5, Justin Jefferson, who sits at number 17 overall on Todd McShay's board. I feel like that is absurd to me. That is, and I love Justin Jefferson. I was one of the guys who brought him to you and said, dude, I really do think this guy has talent. But Justin Jefferson, and we talked about it on the Tuesday podcast, so much of the production is inflated of him running routes. So
people were saying, Joe Burrow, product of his wide receivers, product of this offense. I think if anyone's a product of that offense, it's Justin Jefferson. Yeah. He's the product of the offense, product of Joe Burrow's accuracy, because Burrow's hitting these tight windows over the middle of the football field that are getting the ball to Jefferson right in stride to get yards after the catch, to where it's not necessarily Jefferson making that happen. It's Burrow and his accuracy and finding those windows over the middle of the football field that are really putting those. Now, that's not to take any shade off Jefferson. He's a great prospect. He makes our top 100. It's just, in this loaded wide receiver class, are you going to take your chances on a guy like that and Justin Jefferson, who's, we've talked about how a lot of his production just is scheme-based and not necessarily beating a guy, or are you going to take your chance on someone like T. Higgins, who's playing outside every single snap, who's who's 3rd highest yards per route run in this draft, who's 7 of 11 contested situations? Like, he's been excellent in a lot of things you need to do in the NFL to beat coverage. Which one are you going to take? I mean, I'll take the guy that's beating coverage at the moment. Yeah, and
if you want to take a guy that's almost playing exclusively outside, I mean, Easop Winston Jr. at Washington State is another name to mention.
We'll bring that up later. We'll bring that up. We're going to talk about Darnay Holmes, so We'll bring that one up.
Sounds good. Let's go to the tight end position. I think this is a position on the podcast we haven't honestly brought up a ton. Hunter Bryant of Washington sits at number 1. Your guy that you really did like at the start of the season, falling a little bit to number 2. Jared Pinkney of Vanderbilt. And then 3, which I think is a surprise to many, and I think there's a good chance that he doesn't end at 3 as the draft process moves forward. But Shine O'Grady of Arkansas. First, walk me through Hunter Bryant.
Might have to go to the XFL first. I don't think it's one. I'll preface it by saying I don't think it's a good tight end class. I don't think it's anything special. Not like last year where you had some dudes at the top. No real complete tight ends in this class. But there's some skill sets that are worth. Hunter Bryant, I think, as a receiver, similar to Irv Smith coming out last year, in that he's not your do-it-all tight end. He's 6'2", 240, far more on the wide receiver spectrum than a tight end. Inline blocking is just not going to happen with a guy like that. But I do think he creates mismatches, and he runs and moves like a wide receiver. So if you're going to be a little undersized, you better move like a wide receiver, and he does. 641, 7 yards on the year, 41 catches, and 8 broken tackles. So I do think, and that's he actually produced higher on a yards per route basis the last 2 years than he has this season. So he's been very productive over his career. And like I said, has the best combination of ball skills and athleticism of any tight end in this class.
Talk to me now. Give me the full report on Pinkney.
Oh no!
Give me the.
Do I have to?
I really do want to hear it.
I really love his route running ability. For a bigger dude, he has some shake to him. Has adjusts as well as anyone in this class to off-target passes. I think it's a huge part of playing tight end, because it's not going to be. You have so many times at the tight end position where you're just where the quarterback's putting it away from a linebacker's leverage, and you have to move, make a play. I think that's what Pinkney does best. I think that's his sort of trump card over all the other guys in this draft class, is that ability. We saw it in 2018. Have not seen it this year, but if you see it, if you've seen it, you can get it out of him again. Is what I'm banking on.
Wow.
Now he's a 5th-year senior. He is older side. So maybe he's call him capped out, whatever you want to call him. But and the production this year is concerning. But I'm still going to bank on that 2018 season that we saw.
Jared Pinkney, the number 2 overall tight end on your big board, and then you also have Bryson Hopkins of Purdue at 4. Both of those guys will be at the Reese's Senior Bowl this year. I think that's an opportunity for them to prove some things even more. Pinkney for sure. I mean, this guy needs to show that he can win against good competition at the Senior Bowl. But before we skip over to Bryson Hopkins of Purdue, we got to go to Cheyenne O'Grady of Arkansas. This guy, very special after the catch.
Dad's divorces again.
Yeah. No, let's not bring up my dad's divorces again. But he broke 13 tackles on 63 catches over the past 2 seasons. Special after the catch. Looks like a special talent. The problem is off the field, multiple suspensions, team suspensions at Arkansas, and now he's left the team, deleted his Twitter account. There's a lot of things going on here that maybe Cheyenne O'Grady does not end up in the NFL. Maybe not in this draft.
Yeah, I just might have to rethink this one because there's like so much smoke that, and apparently going back to even high school, there were issues with him and his coaches.
Really?
There. So
and where there's
not
smoke,
great.
Mike, there's fire.
There had been fire. There's something's ablaze here with O'Grady. And, he might have to drop down a little bit more because there's just something very off. It's very bad to leave a football team your senior year.
Bryson Hopkins of Purdue, I know you have some concerns about his ball skills. 19 drops on 133 career catchable passes. That's 14.3%. That's not good. Anything over 10%, you start to kind of that's a flag. That's a red flag. But outside of the drops, there is some things to like about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, not good. There's like only 2 tight ends, I think, in the NFL right now with a higher drop rate this season. That's awful. And that's his career rate. It's not just like an outlier of a season. That's his career has been that bad. So pretty concerning there for sure for Bryson Hopkins. But he's the most athletic tight end in this class, probably in terms of size, speed, agility. He's similar to, I wouldn't be surprised if he runs, low 4.5s. Like he is that athletic. But what are you going to do if he's on the Noah Fant spectrum of what are you going to do if the guy's going to drop 1 or 2 balls like every time you can target him 10 times. Like that's just concerning. That's just not, it's going to kill your offense. I don't know. I struggle how to value guys like that because I do think drops like that and lack of ball skills can really kill quarterbacks and hurt their statistics and sort of kill an offense quicker than guys who maybe not necessarily can't get open as well but can catch the ball.
Number 5 on the big board at the tight end position, Albert O. That's what they call him on campus, but I'm going to go ahead and pronounce this name here. Okuwebunam. I looked up the pronunciation right before here, but Okuwebunam, Albert Okuwebunam, number 5 tight end on the board. He's a guy that...
I'll let you take that one, but let's call him Alberto.
Yeah, Alberto. But initially, I remember when we were reviewing the film before this season, I kind of liked what this guy brought to the table more than Pinkney in some areas. I thought his route running was interesting. I thought he offered value for that Mizzou offense. Where are you with him right now?
I think he's pretty straight liney. I don't love him as his agility. I don't think he's that shake to make a guy miss sort of tight end. But I do love he's big. He's one of the bigger tight ends in the class. I think he goes 255, 260, has good straight line speed, good ball skills. So he's been great in the red zone, 23 touchdowns over the last 3 seasons. So I do think he offers some value, but he doesn't have... I think everyone above this list has a little bit of a trump card that beats Alberto's at this point.
Yep, there you go. I'm sorry, I was reading through the comments, and some people are upset they don't have my glasses today. I broke them over the weekend, and some guy called me a 4-eyed bastard. That's where we're at right now with the YouTube comments. But let's go ahead and move forward to comments. Let's go ahead and move forward to the tackle position. Top 5 tackles here. First 2 we've been talking about for a while. Andrew Thomas of Georgia, and then number 2, Tristan Wirfs of Iowa. What's separating these 2 in your opinion?
It's so tough. I go back and forth, and I have it.
But that speaks to the strength of the class.
Yes.
I like when you say, man, it's tough, because that means, go back to the receiver position. Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, both high-end talents. Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, both high-end talents. Not necessarily you can't go wrong, but these guys are playing at a very high level, and both of them are in that conversation for top 10.
I think what separated them in my mind here is just competition faced. So Thomas has faced, Julian Akwar, Khalid Kareem from Notre Dame, faced Jonathan Greenard from Florida, and Zuniga on a couple snaps in that game. So he's faced better competition than Wirfs. Wirfs has faced Carter Coughlin. He's faced... That's about it. I mean, he really hasn't faced a ton of good edge rushers so far this season at Iowa. So, what was it? Zach Bond as well. I guess he did face in that against Wisconsin. So, not a ton of talented edge rushers that he's seen. So that's the difference in my mind because both playing excellent football still.
Well, Tristan Wirfs, though, I know you've thought in the past that there's a chance that maybe he gets kicked inside the guard.
It's
Where
possible.
are you at with him right now? Do you still see him as a tackle first?
Yeah, I think he's tackle first and then kick inside the guard if necessary.
All right, number 3 on the board, Alex Leatherwood of Alabama. At 4, Josh Jones of Houston, who will also be at the Senior Bowl. And then Jedrick Wills Jr. of Alabama. Skip those two guys. I got to go to Wills.
Yes.
Such an explosive dude. So good in the run game. You put in here 10 big-time blocks this season. Leads all at his position. And those big-time blocks, those are those highly graded blocks. Those are pancakes. Those are death blows.
Basically, taking a guy 3 or 4 yards off the line of scrimmage, you're doing a crazy reach, or getting to a linebacker at the second level that you had no business getting to, pancakes, that sort of thing. He has the only guy with more than him in the country right now is Penny Sewell, who's only a sophomore.
Yeah.
So
that's a dude right
and
there.
that's good
for
company.
Oregon.
Yeah,
that's a dude.
He's gonna be special next year. He's the Chase Young of offensive tackles. That prospect.
Quote him right now. Interior offensive line. Let's jump to this position here. This guy's been number 1 on your interior offensive line
It's not
rankings
changing
for a while, and it's not changing regardless of injury because the guy's been a little injury plagued. But Netani Muti of Fresno State, a nasty Hawaiian-born monster, built like a monster, but he's so good in the run game. And also, what I like about him, I feel like I always bring it up because he's nasty. That's what pops out on tape. But he's also very good in pass protection.
Yes.
And sometimes you see some of these nasty. I want to bring up Drew Samia, the Oklahoma guard, who's kind of a nasty, a finisher, struggles a bit in pass protection, can sometimes get a little over-aggressive and lose his footing and get beat there. Netani Muti, a different story. He can turn it on and turn it off.
That's the crazy thing about Muti that I love so much is that he has these blocks where he lights guys up, but he never has the blocks where he goes for a kill shot and then falls flat in his face. He is on balance. He just can
well-timed kill shots.
Sink his hips and explode better than any other offensive line in the country. He's a freak of nature. This guy,
John Wick, in a sense. If you watch the John Wick shows, he takes some crazy shots and he always hits them square between the eyes. That's Netani Muti.
He really is just the best interior offensive lineman in the country. Unfortunately, only a handful of games this year before his season was cut short. Again, I believe with a shoulder injury or something this year. Had the Achilles injury last year, but on 193 pass blocking snaps over the past 2 years, 3 pressures allowed. Dude, he's good as excellent as a run blocker, just as good as a pass protector.
All right, Tyler Biadasz of Wisconsin. He's a guy that I think a lot of people are going to have number 1 on their interior offensive line rankings. A big reason why, because no one watches the group of 5, and no one's even seen Netani Muti. But Tyler Biadasz is a guy who I think going into this year had very high grades in PFF system, and he's still earning high grades now for Wisconsin. I think I look at him and I see the grading profile, and I'm like, okay, this guy's a safe pick. He's like a high floor pick.
Exactly. I don't think he's super. He doesn't get you near as excited as when you watch Muti, but smooth. Pops off the snap, quick off the snap, has size to play. He could probably even play guard if you wanted to play guard. And he's been a top 5 graded center freshman year, sophomore year, now junior year in college football.
And he was a walk-on or something. I remember writing the background, or there was something along the lines of he wasn't even supposed to play center, but now he's playing. I'll have to dive into the background, but I think he has an interesting one.
Yeah.
Let's go to Creed Humphrey of Oklahoma. He's another name I think that gets tossed around a ton at the top of interior offensive line rankings right now. Where do you see his game?
Yeah, I just love that he's been so good in pass protection, even when he hit the ground running as a redshirt freshman last year. Only 5 pressures this year as a redshirt sophomore allowed all season long. And another guy who, 6'5", 315, he's not pigeonholed into center. If you wanted this guy to play guard, he'd probably play guard. If you wanted to play tackle, I think he might even be able to play tackle as well. He's just that good. Didn't end up playing tackle at Oklahoma because they had some dudes there at tackle when Bobby Evans and the other guy's name's eluding right now, the Bills right tackle at the moment. I don't know how I know that, but can't remember his name. Cody Ford. There we go. They had those 2 guys to tackle, so he was kicked inside to center, but he can play pretty much anywhere, which I love.
Here we go. I'm going back to Tyler Biadasz. Recruited as a 3-star defensive lineman as part of the 2016 class. 5 offers: Illinois State, South Dakota State, Southern Illinois, Western Illinois, and Wisconsin. Decision a no-brainer. That's what I put in the notes here. Goes to Wisconsin.
Do you want to go to Western Illinois?
Goes to Wisconsin, and then after taking a redshirt in 2016, goes away from defensive line, starts all 14 games at center, and like you said, as a freshman, high-graded center, sophomore. To get that production, to get that level, those grades, when you didn't even play the position. You weren't even recruited as an offensive lineman. I think it's special. I think that speaks volumes to him as a prospect, that Biadasz kid. Let's go to number 4 and number 5 on your list here. Calvin Throckmorton of Oregon goes at number 4, but let's go right to Kentucky. Logan Logan Stenberg at number 5. He's a guy that I know you kind of, similar to Muti, you kind of can get excited watching his tape.
O-line coach porn. He was described as the SEC's most disliked player.
Oh man, I got to meet this guy.
Yeah.
That's close. Kentucky's just a hop, skip away here in Cincinnati.
One lone pressure all season long on 261 pass blocking snaps. So there's a lot to like. And you watch his tape, and he's jumping on dudes, on piles. He's mean. So
you're getting me going right now. I got something a reference I want to bring up. I remember Gabe Jackson, Mississippi State, now with the Oakland Raiders. Yeah. Von Miller in an interview after the game, I don't know if it was a couple years ago or whatever, said he is the nastiest smelling player in the NFL. But think about that as an advantage. Like if you just smell like complete ass when you're playing, it's like that'd be tough to bull rush a Gabe Jackson when he smells like death.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's
it's no fun. I mean, being around a guy who smells like ass.
Stenberg if we do get the opportunity, because it could be part of it. It could really be part of it.
You're like 10 feet away. You're like, oh, that's Stenberg.
Wow, he smells terrible. Let's go to our next segment here. That was great, by the way. Offensive position rankings, good stuff. Mike Renner. Make sure to check out the full article on PFF.com, and make sure to continue to follow PFF for all of our draft coverage. We're going to have defensive rankings at every position.
I think if they're listening to this, they follow our draft coverage. True. But just saying.
Hey,
but yeah,
you know what?
It doesn't hurt to.
I'm sorry. Maybe they just listen to the podcast but hate the website.
Yeah. I mean, I hate the website, but yeah.
Yeah. True.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.